Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of TRCOA's Behind the Groove. If you're here live, please introduce yourself and ask questions in the chat as we go along. This episode is sponsored by Stinson Recording Studios. Also, if you find this content useful, please like this video, and if you are new, please subscribe to our channel. We make new content every week. Today we are proud to have Robert Sewell. He is going to review one of his clients' sessions. Robert is the owner of Robert Sewell Productions. He's also a TRCOA alum and has worked with such artists as the Pentatonics, Lil Wayne, and Skrillex. Robert will start right after our pro tip in under 5 minutes.
Hey everyone, I'm Ben Cleaver, and I'm going to show you our pro tip in under 5 minutes. So tonight we're going to talk about how to freeze, unfreeze, and commit tracks in Pro Tools. Here we go. In this track right here, let's say I have an amp sim or a plugin that I'm going to be transferring over to another session to listen to, or I may want to tweak later. What we can do is we can actually right click directly up on a insert, and we can click freeze up to this insert. And what this is going to do is this is going to render out that file. And so what freezing is going to do is it's going to print out the entire track like it is through the settings that you have from the plugin that you're freezing, and then it saves those where you hear that exact sound. Now you can come back and you can unfreeze it if you need to adjust any of the settings, and that's what's great about using the freeze function in Pro Tools is it's really easy to come back and then adjust your settings and you can refreeze it. So now we see we have a little snowflake option right here that's showing that this is frozen. And when we actually look at it over here, it puts these little lines to show that this whole track is frozen as well. So that is freezing, and it's going to sound exactly like it did before. But now that track's completely frozen. And if we wanted to work with it again, we just go down here where it says the name, and we right click, and then there's a button that says unfreeze. And now you can see it redid all the unfreezing, put my audio clip exactly back how it should be, and now it's easy for us to open back up the plugin and mess around with any of the settings we need. Now let's say that we have a bunch of settings on here that we have set up and we know we don't need to go back and tweak them anymore. We just want to make sure they stay like that for the rest of the session. So what we can do now is we can actually right click here, and there's going to be an option that says commit. And when we click commit, it's going to bring up a little dialog here. I'll just have it make it inactive so you can see what it does and the track stays there. But now what it's going to do is it's going to consolidate my clips, insert it right after this track, and it's going to actually render out this entire track with all the plugins and the processing that I have on it exactly as it is on a new track that's nice and clean that you can use in your session without having to do any more editing. You could also use this to print out stems if you needed to. You could just commit a track and then you have that whole track sitting there exactly as it is. And now you're going to see I had it set to deactivate the other, which it deactivated that track I did before. Now it made me a commit track. Anytime you make a commit track, it'll title it whatever the track was and then add .cm after it so you know it's a commit. And then when we go look at it, we can see this is what our original audio looked like, and then I committed it, and this is what the audio now looks like with processing. Okay guys, so that is how you freeze and unfreeze a track, also how you commit a track as well. Thank you all for watching, and we'll see you next time.
Hey guys, I'm Robert Sewell, and today we're going to go over the mixing and production for the song Ghosts by the artist Zach James. Before we jump into it, I wanted to play a little bit of the song.
We could have made it on our own, do you remember? Chasing the wind that winter blows in late December. I would have never let you down. We were the kings in paper towns, now you're a ghost. Where did you run away to, my love? My love. No, not done, not done. You're a ghost to me that can never leave. You keep haunting me, you
So that's going to be the song we're going to go over today. And at any point, I got y'all's chat up right here. Ask any questions, and I'm going to answer them. I see a lot of y'all already saying hello. What's up, everyone? I am wearing a swimsuit. That's right. All right, so before we get into the mix, I actually wanted to jump over to Ableton and start with the production and what my mindset was, what I was thinking before I even got to the mix. One of my biggest pet peeves is when people say, we'll just fix it in the mix. I hate that. I do not live by that. I think you should get it right before the mix. Even if you're sending a song off to a mixer, you should, in the production, get it as close as you can to what you want and what the artist wants. So, with that being said, I'm going to jump into it. There's obviously a lot of tracks in this song, but it's pretty simple overall. We have drums. I'll start with the drums. Let's see. The first thing is, in the demo session, I had this drum loop and this groove that I wanted to start with. So I like that drum loop and that original groove, so I pulled it into this production session, and then I just wanted to pump it up a little bit. So had the groove. The first thing I did is I wanted to start layering in some kicks. And as you can see in the first and second chorus, I have 3 kicks. Now, as I was producing this and I started layering kicks, again, I'm thinking of the mix and I'm mixing as I go. So however I want my kicks to sound, I'm using EQ, compression, and carving that to what I want to hear. And so when I layer 3 kicks, like this is my main one, I have some compression. By the way, if y'all don't know, this is one of my favorite compressors to tighten up low end. If you have a kick, an 808, anything with low end, even a guitar, use this compressor to tighten up the low end. So I got the main kick, and then I wanted something with a little more dirt and mid-range. So added this. Again, started EQing and carving out the low end of this because I'm getting low end from 2 of the other kicks. So had my kick, so my kick in that original drum loop that I had from the demo session. We got some snares. Same thing, like I said, as I'm producing, I'm treating all this as though I'm mixing as I go. Lots of snares, never too many snares. Now in the last chorus, as I produce, maybe it's just my style, but I like for things to develop. So the last chorus, I wanted the drums to be a little bigger. So I added another kick with a little reverb. Now, if I remember, as I was producing this, I probably had this kick, I added reverb, I added probably some distortion, and then I froze and flattened it. Now, I'm a big believer on just committing. Again, thinking about the mix, if I want my kick to have reverb on it, I'm gonna put reverb on my kick, commit it, and that's what I'm gonna mix. I'm not gonna say, well, we'll wait till the mix, we'll put reverb on the mix. I'm not gonna do that. So, I wanted the drums to be a little bigger. I added also a break beat. Again, same thing. I have some saturation on it. If you guys don't have this plugin, the soft tube saturation, love it. So yeah, my drums get a little bigger in the last chorus. Add some percussion. Pretty simple stuff. I'm sure y'all all do this. Yeah, and so then we have drums. I have an 808 going throughout the song. And then when my chorus hits, I add a synth bass just to kind of give it some dirt and a little energy. Y'all got any questions so far? I know we really haven't dug in yet, but then we got a lot of guitars, but I tried to affect the guitars in a fresh way where they don't sound like it's a rock song or something like that. So lots of guitars. I have a guitar pad. Now this originally, I'll mute this. So I wanted to turn that into a pad. I didn't want it to sound like a guitar. I wanted it to sound like more like a pad. So first thing I did is the shimmer. If you guys don't have this, get it. I'm sure you all have it. I love it. I love putting it on guitar and making it sound like a synth or a pad. And I EQ'd it. Again, I'm going to keep saying this throughout this whole video. As I'm making these decisions, I'm thinking of the mix, and I'm doing what I would do if I was mixing the song. And I did mix this song, and I'll get to that in a bit. But even if I was sending this off to a mixer, I would do the same stuff, because this is how I wanted this sound to sound, so that's what I did. I got a vibey little reverse guitar. There's a lot of like haunting sounds in the song. Obviously it's called Ghost. We wanted to sound a little creepy, so we have a lot of sounds like that. Now this is probably the most basic guitar like in the song. Kind of drives it. Nothing special. Just a little subtractive EQing. Got an octave. So now on all these guitars, as y'all probably have noticed, they're all froze and flattened. Again, like I said before, I do that a lot. So, you know, if I had the original guitar, I got a guitar rig on this, a gate, EQ. If I put distortion, whatever I'm doing, I'm freezing, flattening, I'm moving on, I'm committing. If it feels good to me, that's what I'm going to run with. Then we have an acoustic guitar that comes in the last half of the song. Then after that, it's pretty basic. We just got some piano sounds. I think I used Omnisphere for all this stuff. Vinyl noise, and then some pads. This is cool. Took the harmonics from the guitar, just turned it into a little counter pad thing. Same thing, shimmer, love using shimmer. Side changed it, kick started it. Filter Freak, love me some Filter Freak. So, and then we got some sweeps. Everyone loves sweeps. All right, and then some synths. Again, probably Omnisphere or like the Roland package. Again, with this synth, we wanted some creepy sounds. The song's called Ghosts. It's about this chick haunting you and you can't get over her, so that's what we wanted to feel like. I wanted to put a lot of vocal sample chop stuff in it, especially in the beginning and the verses, to help add to that creepiness, and that's what we did. So yeah, so that's pretty much all that's in the song. Like I said, in the production, obviously this production, worked on it for a while, had a bunch of different versions, but the big thing I wanted to really hit on was as I was producing, I was mixing, and I was never said we're gonna fix it in the mix. I wanted it to sound like it was already mixed before I started mixing it. So then the next step I would do is I would export all my stems, right, to go over to Pro Tools. But since I had a lot of drums, I'll start with the drums. Since I had a lot of drums and I had like the original loop that I had, and then I had kicks and snares, I already treated all these kicks and I compressed them. Like you'll see on this kick bus, I got a little R bass just to give it a little low end. So I was already treating this, right? I was essentially already mixing it. So instead of bouncing down the individual kicks and stems, I didn't want to do that. So what I did is I bounced down the original drum loop. I bounced down all the kicks as one, all the snares as one, all the toms as one, right? And that's what is going to go into my Pro Tools session. I already liked how it sounded. I liked how it felt. So when I get to the mix, it's really just a chance for me to automate, be creative, do some very simple, minimal stuff, and just put that final polish on it. So before I move over to Pro Tools, do you guys have any questions? any alternative to the shimmer plugin? Great question. So if you guys don't have the Valhalla shimmer, you could do a bunch of different things. Honestly, you could just take a regular reverb. You could take an Ableton reverb and just turn up the decay, make it really long, EQ it how you want, and you essentially get the same effect. I can see, where is that guitar? So I can mute the shimmer real quick. Let's see, I'll just do like a vintage verb. I'm sure a lot of y'all have that. So you can turn this up as, turn that wetness. Right? Then I would EQ it, compress it, get it to sound how I want. Any other questions? No? All right, well then I'm gonna jump into Pro Tools. So like I said, next step I did is I went over to Pro Tools. Okay, so before I get into this, the first thing I did was I obviously had a rough mix that I probably listened to for a couple days before I jumped into the mix. And so I got really familiar with the song. And I knew what I wanted to hear, what I didn't like, stuff like that. Now, if you're just mixing a song and you got it from another producer, you should do the same thing. Listen to the rough mix, listen to references, listen to songs that are similar to what you're mixing so you can kind of start tuning your ears. And you should be very familiar with the song and listen to that rough mix before you get into it. The next thing I did is, maybe I'm a little OCD, but I'm huge on organization. I color code all my stuff. Every session is the same colors, so I can look at it and go right to what I want. If I'm hearing something in the acoustic guitar, I know it's orange, I go right to it. The next thing I do is I have templates for mixing. If you guys don't have templates, you should definitely get on that. Make some templates. It makes your process go a little faster, and especially if you kind of get in a routine with templates, you know, you work quicker and you can be more creative instead of having to constantly like load up stuff. And when I'm mixing, I like to just continue the creative process and just doing small tweaks. So that was the next thing. I loaded in my template, loaded in my buses, and then I started putting it on my stems. Now, like I told y'all before, again, like with my drums, I have the kicks, the snares, toms. I didn't have all the individual stuff because I liked how it was. With my guitars, I bounced down just, you know, if I had like a riff and I stacked it, I bounced it down as one riff. For instance, the acoustic guitar. The acoustic guitar I recorded in a whole nother session, and I layered it with 3 guitars, panned it left, right, center. And I bounced that down as one. And in that session, I compressed EQ, I mixed the guitar to sound like I wanted to before I even bounced it down. So that was the very first step. Now, as I get into the mix, the very first thing I always want to do is filter with EQs. Now, I did that a lot while I was producing, so I didn't have to do a lot in this mix session. And what I mean by that is the first thing I do is, like, if I have a guitar, for instance, like these guitars, and I know that I don't need a lot of low end from it because I have low end in 808 or whatever else is in my track, I'm gonna cut and filter all the low end out. Now, this is really important. When I started doing this, that's when my mixes really went to the next level. Because a lot of times people don't think of this to do this, but even if you can't hear the really low end in a guitar, you know, you can't really hear it, it's still there, that information's still there, and it's taking up room in the mix. And that's how you're gonna have muddy mixes, and they're not gonna be clear. Or like, if you have a lot of low end in your guitar, but you have a lot of low end in bass and kicks and stuff like that, and you can't really hear that guitar riff, your first instinct is just to turn up the guitar. Well, then that would be a mistake. The reason you can't really hear it is you have a lot of low end in that guitar that's competing with the low end in the bass and kicks and other instruments in the track. So filter, go through, filter. If you didn't do it in Ableton, go through and filter. I did that a lot on the guitars because, like I said, I don't need a low end. On these keys, I did a lot of filtering in Ableton. Right here, you'll see is I just did some subtractive EQ. That's, again, another first thing I do is I'm going to do subtractive EQing. And a lot of my stuff you'll see is I haven't even thought about panning. I haven't thought about the levels yet. Obviously, they're in good level because they came out of Ableton, and I was doing that as I went. But I'm not thinking about coloring, and what I mean by that is like boosting certain frequencies in EQ. I'm not thinking about that. I'm just subtractive. I'm trying to clean up and make room for the mix. So once I've done that and I have my track and everything's kind of balanced, the next thing I'll do is I'll go through and clip gain. And what I mean by that is like a form of automation. So I'll go through my vocals and clip gain, make certain words louder, quieter, whatever I need to do. I'll do the same thing with the tracks. You know, like this first chorus, I clip gain the hi-hats down a little bit, and then they got a little louder. So that'd be the next step that I would do. Once I do that, I mute everything, and I start with the vocals. This is also very, very important. I always start with the vocals, or whatever is the most important thing in the track. Now, if you're mixing like a hip hop song, it's going to be vocals and 808 or drums, right? So that's what you would start with. But in this song, I wanted to start with the vocals. So that's what I did. So I had the lead vocal here, and as you can see how I bus it, I have 2 tracks of lead vocals, and they go into my lead vocal bus. On my lead vocal, I started with a limiter.
You always love to make a sound, do you remember?
Now the reason I like doing that is I like starting with the limiter just to kind of hit some of the peaks that may happen before I start compressing and doing all that, because I feel like the compressor will work better. And so that's what I do, I start with that. Have a little bit of subtractive EQ, just getting rid of some stuff I didn't want. And then I did boost the high end just a little bit. I got a compressor, the de-esser. Any questions so far? Besides if I'm gonna go swimming after this?
You always love to make a sound.
And then after I've done my subtractive EQ and I compress a little bit, this is where I'm going to EQ to color and what I want the vocal to sound like. So I have the SSL, love the SSL. Then I did some more compression after. So if you've noticed, as I go, even back in my Ableton session, if I'm throwing a compressor on something, I'm only doing a little bit at a time. So like this limiter is just barely working. Every once in a while it'll clamp down on something where he starts belting on the chorus. And then, you know, this just a little bit. And then I get to this one and it's doing a little bit more. I like doing that, using a couple different ones and just doing a little bit at a time. For me, it feels more musical and sounds better. Some people would just use one compressor and slam it, but that's what I like doing. Then I have another de-esser. So I also, on the actual lead vocal, I have a de-esser doing the normal de-essing of the vocal, right? But then I put this other de-esser on the track, and it's actually not de-essing, you know, the sibilance or whatever. I have it at 4200. That 4K range that's like where the real harsh, you know, 3 to 4K is like where the real harsh part of the vocal is. And so it's almost acting like a compressor on that frequency. And so that's what I'm doing here. I'll mute it and play it back. It's real subtle, but
never leave. You keep haunting me. You keep
just makes the vocal a little bit smoother, in my opinion. But and then another compressor. This one's only got at a, you know, ratio of 2, and I'm just barely kissing it. So that's the lead vocal. I'll also throw these in. These are some like vocal effect throws that some reverb, using the vintage verb. So before I get to the other vocals, once I had this sounding like I wanted, then that's when I started throwing in some effects. So, you know, I have a plate verb, slap, a throw, delay. I have a chorus. I have a big verb that I believe, yeah, is automating. So it comes on in the chorus.
Not done. You're a ghost to me that
And then a dotted eighth. And so all my effects are down here. Now before I move on, if y'all want me to get into any of these, I can, like the actual effects. Before I move on, I wanted to touch on a couple things on the effects. I always EQ and compress my effects. I know a lot of people don't do that, but your effects, your reverbs, your delays, your choruses, whatever you put on your vocal or any other track is audio, and that is in your mix. So you should EQ and compress it, and if you want to put distortion on it, put distortion on it, do whatever you want. But with this, I took out some of the low end, took out a little bit of 628, and then made it a little brighter because I wanted the effects brighter, and then just compressed it a little bit. The next thing I wanted to touch on the effects, this is really important to me, and again, once I learned this, it took my mixes to the next level. So a lot of people, when you're putting reverbs and delays on, a lot of people, like, they know about delays, like quarter note, eighth note, it's in time with the tempo of your song. But what a lot of people don't realize is your reverbs also need to be in time with your song. What I mean by that, I have a plate reverb on this, right? So you can Google, there's a bunch. If you just type in like BPM tempo chart, there's a bunch of them. And so I use this website, I put in the tempo, and then I'll select how big of the reverb I want. So for a whole note, it tells me that at this tempo, to have it in time, 2,608. So what do I do on my reverb? 2608. Now, this decay and this reverb is going to be in time with my song. A lot of y'all, if you're doing effects using reverb and you can't get your reverb right and it's like real messy or muddy, start with this. It makes a huge difference. So I did that. And so that was the vocals. And then after the lead vocals, we had dubs, ad-libs, just copying the melody. I did a pretty similar thing on my dub bus as I did on the lead. I just EQ'd it differently so that it would fit with the lead vocal. And that was pretty much it. Then we have a bunch of harmonies.
You goes to me that can never leave. You keep haunting me. You keep haunting me.
Again, same, kind of treated it the same way. EQ'd it a little bit differently to fit with everything.
Goes to me that
then we have some ad-libs.
Haunting me. You keep haunting me.
Okay, so once I get my vocal where I want it to sound and it sounds good to me, I may always do tweaks like later on in the mix. Then that's when I start adding in the other instruments that, and I start in order of importance, right? I'll start adding in the other instruments. And the rule for me is whatever I put in the mix has to complement the vocal. If I put something in and like I'm losing the vocal or like if there's a frequency that starts kind of muddying up the vocal, I cut that frequency in the instrument. If the instrument is distracting me from the vocal, I mute the instrument. The vocal is the most important thing in this song specifically, in most songs, so that's what I did. Any questions? Let's see. What all do you have in the template? A template, as I go, y'all will see, is pretty simple. It's just these buses. So when I make my template, I'll usually make a lead vocal bus, a dub vocal bus, BGVs, effects, right? Always for my vocals. I'll keep all my effects. I have some that are hidden. Depending on the song, I may throw in other effects, but that's in my template. And then I just do like a pretty basic, like a drum bus, bass bus, guitar bus, stuff like that. if I were to open up this template and import this session to start mixing and I didn't have guitars, I would just mute it. And then I always end, which I'll get to at the end of the mix. I always got some like all vocal bus, all drums, and I treat those. So what auto tune, what are you using to tune? What am I using to tune vocals? So I always use Melodyne, and then I'll use a little auto tune as well. I feel like the auto tune, even on a great singer that's in pitch, obviously Zach's a great singer. I still use auto tune. I feel like it gives it a shine and kind of polishes that vocal and gives you that modern sound. So I do both, depending on the genre. Also, like if it's a hip hop session, obviously, and the artist wants auto tune, you can crank the auto tune on it, whatever it is. Now, if it's a folk session and you may not use the auto tune, you know, if you're doing something more old school, but I may just use Melodyne. So, any other questions on vocals before I move on? Cool. So, got my vocals, right? Sounding like I want. I start adding in my drums. So, again, something I want to stress on is when I start mixing a song, I try to keep it as simple as possible, especially if I produced the song and I was doing a lot of mixing before. So you'll see I don't have a lot of plugins on this stuff because I had a lot of plugins on the production. So I'm just doing little things like on my kick, I just wanted to tame the low end a little bit because I'm getting a lot of low end from my 808 and stuff, right? So I love using this multiband from Fad Filter. I almost use it as an EQ a lot of times, and I'll show you all that on some of the other tracks. Like if there's a frequency that I want to EQ, but maybe I still kind of want a little bit of it there, I'll just throw a multiband on it. So that's what a lot of this multiband is just taming some of the frequencies that are in there. I got a limiter on the kick. I love using limiters, especially this L2. And when I'm using this limiter, I'm bringing the ceiling and the threshold down together because I don't want any gain out of it. You know, I just want to tame those peaks, you know, treat it as like a compressor. And by doing this on my kick, like, you know, my kicks are really loud, right? So by doing that, it's not gonna hit my bus compressors, like my drum bus compressors or my master bus compressor as hard, and that's what you want because you don't want a crazy amount of compression on there, right, where you can hear it. So you see I have a lot of limiters on my drums just because my drums are so loud, and a lot of subtractive EQ. This is something else cool I like doing. So on my hi-hats, I'll go to the end with all the percussion. I like using this de-esser like a EQ. So if my hi-hats or anything that's got a lot of high frequency, instead of rolling off or trying to take the high end out, what I'll do is I'll slap this de-esser on. So just treat it like a compressor. Just tame that high end. So I like doing that. Let me mute everything else so I can solo. So, yeah, so now I got my drums and vocals. Once I was in a happy place with that, to me, this song was very drum heavy, right? I wanted to put some low end in, so that's when I brought in my bass, which is my 808. Well, I guess I almost skipped over this, my drum bus. Let me do that first. My drum bus, I just have some tape on it, Studer. Just doing some little subtractive. Again, this is like the compressors, what I was saying earlier. Just little bits here and there, you know what I mean? It's like cooking, just a little bit of salt here and there. And the end product's gonna be way better. So I have the tape, EQ. I didn't do any compression on the drum bus because a lot of my stuff was already compressed when I was producing. And I was thinking about that, so I was compressing as I went, right? I do have a limiter on it. Again, love limiters. Now I am parallel compressing my drums though. So I like doing that on my drum bus. I like doing that a lot. It just depends on the session and the song, but I did it on this. I used the stressor. I loved the stressor for this purpose. And I'm hitting it a little harder. Now I'm hitting it hard. So you're gonna get you're gonna get more of the room noise. You're gonna get more whatever. My cymbals are gonna come out more. So instead of EQing, I did the DS trick, and I DS my parallel drum bus. Took a little bit more of the highs out, and then also used the limiter and hit it hard, right? And then with this parallel bus, I will just blend it in however I want. So I'm gonna mute it. Before. That's after. It makes it a little more solid, brings in some more of the mids. And then you just blend to where you want it. Right? Now on this, sometimes I'll put distortion if I want some distortion. You can do whatever on this. You put reverb on it, whatever you want, you know. At this point of mixing, like I said, we're being creative and just doing like the final little touches. So I brought in my bass. Now you'll see I also parallel compressed my bass, but I ended up, for whatever reason, not liking it, so I just muted it. Which happens sometimes, I guess, right? Just, again, multi-band. Instead of EQing that 200, which can get real muddy in your bass, instead of EQing it, I just used the multi-band and compressed it a little bit, you know? So, than that. So at this point, before going down like a rabbit hole, when I'm mixing, I may listen through the song. I may take a break, step away, give your ears a break, you know what I mean? And then come back, whatever. And to me, knowing the song and listening to the song, right? The next most important thing, which is going through the song, is the guitar. So that's where I would start adding in my guitars, right? And again, everything has to complement the vocal. So, again, with the guitars, as I showed y'all over in Ableton, I did a lot of the EQ and the treatment and had guitar amps and guitar rig and did a bunch of effects. And so here it's just the subtractive stuff. It's getting rid of that low end that I don't need, because I have all the low end from the bass, right? Nothing fancy, nothing crazy. Again, keeping it simple. Got that guitar pad with the shimmer. And then this is my guitar bus. Again, like usually, maybe I'll put some compressors and stuff on it, but I didn't do anything crazy. I kept it simple. Just did a little subtractive EQ and had the limiter. You got to trust your ears. I constantly listening. I try not to do anything if it's not sticking out to me. When I was first starting out, I would just like throw a compressor on something because I thought that was the right way to do it. Don't do anything unless you hear it and your ears tell you that, oh, this needs work or this needs to be different. So this is cool. This main counter guitar, right? I wanted a little bit of high end from that, but instead of EQing some high end, I wanted it to sound, how do I say, like less like a guitar, like kind of more modern. I don't know. I didn't want to just take a guitar, right, and just boost the high end. I wanted something different. And so something to cut through all the drums and the bass, right? And again, as I'm doing this, my vocals, drums, and bass are in, so it's got to fit and all that. I added a bit crusher to this part. So you can kind of hear the high end. I'll mute it. Just give it a little high end. help it cut. And then that reverse guitar, I didn't do anything to this. Did that all in Ableton, right? And the pad. Something I want to, also say is, like I said before, if at any point in the mix, if there's an instrument that is just in there to be in there and it's not serving a purpose, like if you can mute that instrument and you don't lose energy and the song doesn't change, it's just in there, I take it out. You don't need it. If it's a guitar and you can't hear it or it's not really adding anything to the song, take it out. You don't need it. It leaves more room for the mix. So at that point, everything's sounding really good, right? Now, to me, we were just missing some of that lush high-end stuff, right? Which in the production, I was thinking about that, did that. That's why we have the guitars. Now, the acoustic guitar, the acoustic guitar. The acoustic guitar comes in on the second chorus. Copies that melody. And again, you may ask why I didn't have it in the beginning. As the song goes, you'll see I add more guitars. I add the acoustic guitar. I added that guitar pad. I wanted the song to build where every chorus is a little bit different. Sometimes it's just a feeling thing, but it keeps the listener, engaged. So added the acoustic guitar. Didn't do a whole lot to the acoustic guitar, just some subtractive stuff. And these were as I was mixing, as I threw that in with everything else, I wanted to take this out because, hey, I don't need 200 in the acoustic guitar when I got that in the electric and the other guitars and synths and drums. Now, if you guys are making these moves soloed, you're gonna make a big mistake because you may hear this and go, oh wow, that sounds like shit. It's thin, it's whatever, right? But even with this drastic cut right here, if I put it in the track, it still sounds like an acoustic guitar because our ears, when we're listening to a mix like this, our ears, the only thing that we can really make out is that high end. And once our ears hear that high end of the guitar, it tells our mind that that's an acoustic guitar. You don't need all that frequency in a mix like this. Now, if it was acoustic and vocal, yeah, you would need that, right? Otherwise, it wouldn't sound good. But these moves I'm making to the whole mix as I'm listening. And then I got the keys. It's just standard piano. Again, did some subtractive EQ and filtering. Nothing crazy. Sometimes, I'll have effects in my mix session, like whether it's reverb or delay on the instruments, but I did all that stuff in Ableton. So it's like, I made it sound like I wanted to, so why would I, wait to the mix or do that again? So all my pads bounced down, side chained, just filtered. And then my synths. And then, all my sweeps and stuff. So once, I know I'm kind of going through this quick. So yeah, ask any questions. Lots of small moves that add up massively. I'm a big believer in that, just little small moves. So once I get that where I want, you'll see this is the last step as I mix, right? I'll do my automation, I'll do all that. I'm gonna have my final buses here where I have all my vocals, my background vocals, my ad-libs, my effects going into this, and then my drums, whatever, all my percussion, kick, snares, all my drums going in this from my drum bus, right? My parallel drum bus, all that. Bass, and then all music, so any synths, guitars, pianos, stuff like that. And this is where I'll do just little things. I've been using this Neutron lately. I like this, just doing like little EQ and little compression. I just wanted to brighten up the vocal even more, so I have a little EQ on the vocals, just add some air to it. So just little things. On my music, I wanted my music just a little bit wider, so I put the Ozone imager on it. Here's a little tip. If y'all don't know, on any of the Ozone stuff, when you're using the imager, click this option button, go to imager, and make sure you prevent anti-phase. So if you click that, you can really push your imager more and prevent phasing. It's kind of cool. So once I have my buses how I want, then that's where I have my master bus, right? Which is what I call my aux master or whatever. I have a little bit of tape on it, nothing crazy. Let's go to the last chorus. So I'll usually treat my master bus to like the loudest part of my song. So usually the last chorus or whatever, right? So I'll do a little bit of compression. Real little. Again, remember, I've been compressing the whole time. I've been compressing in Ableton as I produce. I've been compressing in this. I got limiters on a lot of stuff. So this doesn't have to work that hard. Like if I muted this, you know, and also this song with the drums and stuff, you know, it's dynamic in the fact that when the chorus comes, it gets really big, but I've controlled all the dynamics up till now so that I can just do very little on my master bus and it's gonna sound more musical. Then I have the Ozone. I'll use this for mixing. Obviously I take this off once I bounce it to send to mastering. Just a slight EQ, some compression, dynamic EQ, and then I did the imager on the whole track. And then I love this plugin, just found it, just a friend of mine put me onto it. Shout out to him. Greg Wells, he's a producer, engineer. This is a plugin he made, Mixcentric. It just adds a little something. I'm gonna mute it while you can see y'all can hear it. Gives a little life, makes it a little brighter. So I always do a little of that and then end with a little limiter. The limiter just, you know, obviously make it loud so when your client or the artist you're working with hears it, it's kind of close to what it's going to sound like mastered, so they don't have a big shock factor. But and that's it. Again, keep it really simple. If you are producing and mixing the song, be constantly thinking about the mix, be constantly thinking of, you know, the final product, and just make little moves as you go. And, you know, to get to that end product that you want. Other than that, keep it simple. Don't ever fix it in the mix. Get it right the first time. And that's it. Any questions before I go? Is that ProQ bundle pack using for Pro? Yes. You can go to the ProQ's website and get those plugins. They have a bunch of them. They have really cool reverbs. Obviously, I was using the reverbs. They have delays. They got distortion, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, if there's not any other questions, let's listen to the bridge into the last chorus, and we'll finish it out. So once you finish your mix, listen to the song, step away from it, take a break, come back, listen to it again, go listen in the car, you know, and then make any mix notes that you have and fix it. But so here's Ghost by Zach James.
Where did you run away to, my love? No, we were never finished. No, not done, not done. You're a ghost to me. You keep haunting, you keep haunting me. You're a ghost to me that I'll never see. You keep on haunting me, keep on haunting me. You keep haunting me, you keep haunting me.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this helps a little bit. Again, my name is Robert Sewell, and I'll see y'all next time.
Thanks everybody for watching, and thanks again to our sponsors. If you found this content useful, please like this video. It will tell YouTube to show it to others. If you are enrolled, please go to the Seminars tab on the my.trcoa website and take the quiz over tonight's lesson. And if you need to book one-on-one time with an instructor, text 512-231-0344. If you aren't enrolled, go to trcoa.edu to find out more information about what we do. Also, please post in the chat subjects you'd like to see for our upcoming live streams. And as always, subscribe to our channel, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Bye, everybody.